My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 28 years old, and I was born in a small town in Nebraska, but my story truly began when I decided to enlist in the United States Armed Forces. It wasn't an easy decision for someone who grew up seeing cornfields through the window and dreaming of broader horizons. My father, a man of few words, had served in the Army for almost 2 decades. His silent presence in our home carried the weight of experiences he never shared with us. My mother, on the other hand, was always vocal about her concern regarding the idea of me following in his footsteps. "There's a whole world out there for you to conquer, Sarah," she would say while preparing dinner. But something inside me knew that my path lay in military service. The military academy was a challenge from day one. Waking up at 4:30 in the morning, the grueling physical training, the constant shouting from the instructor sergeant, the pressure to be perfect in every detail, from how to tie my shoelaces to how to perfectly fold the bedsheet. Being a woman in a predominantly male environment only added another layer of difficulty. There were the doubting glances, the whispered comments, the expectations that I would fail, but that only fueled my determination. "Mitchell, do you think you're at a slumber party? Move like your life depends on it." Sergeant Reynolds had a special ability to make every word sound like an explosion right in your ears. And maybe it was that constant pressure that shaped me. I learned to be quick, precise, efficient. I learned that my body could endure much more than I imagined. I learned that my mind could remain clear even when exhaustion seemed to consume every cell of my being. When I graduated, I ranked 3rd in my class, a position I had earned blood, sweat, few tears shed silently under the covers during the hardest nights. My father attended the graduation ceremony. He didn't say much, as usual, but his eyes shone in a way I had never seen before. It was the first time I felt he truly saw me, not as his little girl, but as a soldier. My first assignment was to the military base at Fort Carson, Colorado. The first few months were dedicated to additional training and adapting to the base's routine. It was there that I met Lieutenant Jessica Ramirez, one of the few female officers in a command position at the base. She became a mentor, guiding me on the specific challenges women face in the armed forces. "You'll have to work twice as hard to get half the recognition," she told me one afternoon while we were reviewing some reports. "It's unfair, but it's the reality. The question is, are you willing to do it?" I was there, and I did it. When I received notification about my first overseas mission, I felt a mixture of excitement and fear. I would be sent to a forward base in Afghanistan as part of an operation to protect and support local communities. The preparation was intense, specific training on the local culture, basic language, and enhanced security protocols. Every detail was vital, as a mistake could cost lives. The reality of Afghanistan was very different from anything I had experienced before. The stifling heat during the day, the biting cold at night, the arid, mountainous landscape, so distinct from the green fields of Nebraska, and above all, the constant feeling of imminent danger. Our base was a fortified complex near a small village. Our mission included patrolling the area, ensuring the safety of local civilians, and supporting basic infrastructure projects such as schools and health clinics. In the first few days, I noticed how some local children watched us from afar, curious but apprehensive, especially the girls, who seemed particularly shy. Through our translator, I discovered that many of them had been forbidden from attending school during the previous regime. Now, with the new school we were helping to build, they would have the opportunity to study again. One of these girls, Fatima, about 12 years old, began to approach us timidly during our patrols. She had dark, expressive eyes and a curiosity that seemed to overcome her. Initially, she only waved from a distance. After a few weeks, she began to come closer, until one day, while I was checking the perimeter near the village, she approached and handed me a small wildflower. "Tashakor," she said. The word I knew meant thank you in the local dialect. That small gesture created a connection between us. I started bringing her small notebooks and pencils during our patrols, and she taught me words in her language. It was through her that I got to know the community better, understanding its real needs and concerns. Our routine at the base was predictable. patrols, reports, equipment maintenance, brief moments of rest, but nothing prepares you for the moment when normalcy is interrupted by the sound of explosions and gunfire. It was a day like any other when we heard the first bang. We were near the school under construction when it happened. Attack! Defensive position. Sergeant Parker's cry echoed as we moved quickly into strategic positions. It all happened so fast. The sound of gunfire, the dust rising, screams in different languages. I saw civilians running in panic, seeking shelter, and then I saw Fatima and 2 other children trapped between our position and the source of the gunfire. They were paralyzed by fear, exposed to the crossfire. I didn't think twice. Ignoring the sergeant's shouts to hold my position, I charged toward the children. Each step felt like an eternity. I could feel the impact of the bullets hitting the ground near my feet. When I reached the children, I pushed them behind a partially constructed brick wall of the school. "Get down!" I ordered, even though I knew they didn't understand my words. But the fear in their eyes told me they understood the situation perfectly. We needed to move. The position wasn't safe enough, and the fire continued intensely. I mentally calculated the safest path to our defensive line, where the rest of the team could provide cover. It was a stretch of approximately 30 meters across open ground. Risky, but our only option. I picked up the youngest child and gestured to the other 2 to stay close. I mentally counted to 3 and ran. The world seemed to move in slow motion. Every step, every gasp, every beat of my heart seemed amplified. Then, I felt the impact. A sharp pain in my side made me stumble, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. When we reached the defensive line, other soldiers provided immediate cover for the children. Only then did I allow my body to fully acknowledge the pain. I had been hit on my right side, just below the ribs. The adrenaline had partially masked the sensation, but now it came with full force. "Mitchell is injured. We need a doctor here," someone shouted. The following hours were a blur of activity. The attack was repelled. I was taken to the base's infirmary, where the military doctor treated my wound. The bullet had entered and exited cleanly, without hitting any vital organs. A miracle, according to the doctor. "You're lucky, Private Mitchell. 2 more centimeters to the left, and we'd be having a very different conversation," he remarked as he finished bandaging the wound. In the following days, while I was recovering, I received a visit from Colonel Davis, the base commander. He was accompanied by other senior officers. "Private Mitchell, your actions demonstrated extraordinary bravery and dedication," he said formally. "You risked your own life to save innocent civilians, representing the highest values of the United States Armed Forces." It was there that he informed me that I would be nominated for the Bronze Star Medal, a significant decoration for bravery in combat. The news left me speechless. I hadn't acted thinking about medals or recognition. I simply saw children in danger and did what needed to be done. My recovery took a few weeks, and when I returned to regular duties, I noticed that something had changed. The respect in the eyes of the other soldiers was evident. Even Sergeant Parker, who had initially reprimanded me for abandoning my post, now treated me with a new kind of consideration. But what really touched me was the reaction of the local community. Fatima and her family welcomed me like a hero when I returned to patrol the village. The little girl had made a colorful bracelet that she insisted I wear to protect, the translator explained, relaying her words. The remaining months of my mission passed without major incident. We helped finalize the construction of the school, which was inaugurated with a small ceremony. Seeing the children, especially the girls like Fatima, excitedly entering the building was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. It represented hope, a future, possibilities, things worth fighting for. When I returned to the United States, after completing my mission, the award ceremony was scheduled to take place in Washington, D.C. My parents traveled from Nebraska to be there. My mother, who had always been hesitant about my military, now displayed a quiet but undeniable pride. My father, as always, said little, but his firm embrace conveyed everything I needed to know. The ceremony was held at the Pentagon, attended by numerous high-ranking officers and other military figures. When my name was called, I walked to the podium with the formality that protocol demanded. General Thompson, a man of imposing presence and exemplary service record, pinned the medal to my uniform while reading the official citation for acts of extraordinary bravery during combat operations in Afghanistan. Private Sarah Mitchell, with utter disregard for her own well-being, risked her life to rescue 3 civilian children under intense enemy fire, sustaining injuries in the process. Her actions exemplify the highest standard of courage and commitment to duty, bringing great credit to herself, her unit, and the United States Armed Forces. That moment should have been the pinnacle of my military career up to that point. I had served honorably, completed my mission, and was now receiving significant recognition for my actions. But life rarely follows the scripts we imagine. A few weeks after the ceremony, I was assigned to a new unit at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The transition was relatively smooth, and I quickly adapted to the new routine. Wearing the Bronze Star also meant carrying a certain level of reputation. Some soldiers looked at me with admiration, others with curiosity, and some, mostly men who had never been in real combat, with barely disguised skepticism. One of those skeptics was Lieutenant James Harrison, my immediate commanding officer. From day one, I noticed he was watching me critically. His comments often included indirect references to my decoration, as if questioning its legitimacy. "Mitchell, I hope you know that here medals don't replace hard work and discipline," he commented during our first team meeting. Initially, I ignored these provocations. I let my performance speak for itself, keeping my focus on my responsibilities. But the tension gradually increased. Lieutenant Harrison seemed determined to find fault with everything I did. Reports he considered insufficiently detailed, tactical decisions he questioned during training, even the way I communicated with other members of the unit. The situation came to a head during a field exercise. We were simulating a hostage rescue operation, and I was leading one of the tactical teams. Following established protocol, I made a decision to deviate from the planned route when I identified a potential threat on the original path. It was a call in the field, based on training and experience I had gained in real combat. My team executed the alternate plan with precision, completing the mission within the time and safety parameters. But when we returned to base for the debriefing, Lieutenant Harrison was furious. "Mitchell, who do you think you are to change the established plan? Your medal doesn't give you the right to ignore the chain of command," he shouted in front of the entire unit. I maintained my composure, as military protocol dictates. "Sir, I made the decision based on an assessment of the situation. The Tactical Operations Section 7, Paragraph 3, authorizes the team leader to make situational adjustments when necessary to ensure mission success and team safety." My technically correct response only seemed to enrich further. "Don't quote the manual to me, soldier. I know the rules better than you. The issue here is insubordination and overconfidence." The atmosphere in the unit grew tense in the following days. I felt the stares of the other soldiers, some of silent support, others of curiosity about how the situation would unfold. Lieutenant Harrison, in turn, intensified his scrutiny of my activities. Every report was returned with excessive correction. Each training exercise came with detailed criticism. Then came the blow I wasn't expecting. I was summoned to a meeting with Major Reynolds, Lieutenant Harrison's superior officer. When I entered his office, I found not only the major, but also Harrison himself and an officer from the military legal department. "Private Mitchell, we have a delicate situation to discuss," the major began, his grave tone indicating the seriousness of the matter. "Lieutenant Harrison has raised concerns about your conduct during the mission in Afghanistan, specifically questioning the circumstances that led to your decoration." I felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. "Sir," he presented testimonies from 2 soldiers who were present on the day of the incident, suggesting that your action, while courageous, did not exactly match the official account that justified the award. Specifically, they claim that you were not alone in rescuing the children, and that enemy fire had significantly decreased when you advanced. Lieutenant Harrison maintained a neutral expression, but his eyes betrayed satisfaction. I then understood that he had been actively seeking ways to discredit me, even going so far as to contact members of my former unit. "Major Reynolds, with all due respect, these allegations are false. The official operation report, signed by Colonel Davis, precisely details the events of that day. There are also medical records documenting my gunshot wound. The legal officer, Captain Wilson, intervened. We understand your position. Private Mitchell. However, when questions arise about the legitimacy of a decoration, we have an obligation to investigate. Until we can fully verify all the facts, Major Reynolds has determined that it would be prudent for you not to wear the medal on your uniform. The words hit me like a new bullet, this time straight to the chest. The idea of removing the medal, not because I had done anything wrong, but because someone questioned my integrity, was deeply painful. Is this an official order, sir? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Major Reynolds nodded gravely. It's a temporary measure, Mitchell. Until the investigation is complete. I left that meeting feeling a mixture of shock, anger, and humiliation. It wasn't just a medal. It was a symbol of what I had lived through, the lives I had helped save, the sacrifice I had made, and now, because of the wounded ego and prejudice of an officer who had never been in real combat, I was practically being accused of lying. In the following days, the news spread throughout the base. The looks that had once been of respect were now filled with doubt. Even those who had supported me seemed uncertain about how to proceed. For the first time since joining the armed forces, I began to question my place there. I maintained my routine, fulfilling my obligations with the same dedication as always, but something had changed inside me. The injustice of the situation weighed more heavily on my shoulders than the uniform without the medal. It was during this difficult period that I received an unexpected notification. General Robert Anderson, commander of the division responsible for operations in Afghanistan during my mission, was visiting Fort Bragg for an official inspection. As part of his agenda, there would be a general briefing where he would address the troops. On the morning of the formation, I lined up with my unit on the parade ground. Lieutenant Harrison was particularly strict, giving detailed instructions on how we should behave during the inspection. I noticed his gaze linger on the empty space on my uniform where the Bronze Star had once been. General Anderson arrived punctually, accompanied by a delegation of senior officers. He walked slowly along the line of troops, occasionally pausing to exchange a few words with selected soldiers. As he approached our section, I saw his eyes scan our formation until they stopped on me. There was a brief flash of recognition, followed by an expression I couldn't decipher. He continued his inspection and then went up to the podium for his speech. He spoke about commitment, honor, and the meaning of military service. He mentioned his personal experiences in combat and the importance of trust between comrades in arms. And then, something unexpected happened. Before concluding, he said, his deep voice echoing across the field, I would like to acknowledge the presence of someone who exemplifies the values I have just spoken about. Private Sarah Mitchell, please step forward. I felt all eyes. For a moment, I was paralyzed, unsure how to proceed. Lieutenant Harrison seemed equally surprised, his rigid posture conveying evident discomfort. With a mechanical movement, I stepped forward, positioning myself in front of the formation. General. Anderson stepped down from the podium and walked over to me. Private Mitchell, I had the privilege of reviewing the reports from the operation in which you were wounded while saving civilians in Afghanistan. I also recently received a letter from a young Afghan woman named Fatima, who wrote to the American Embassy expressing her gratitude to the American soldier who risked his life to save her and her. He paused, his intense eyes fixed on, where is your Bronze Star medal? Private? The direct question caught me off guard. I hesitated, aware that my answer could have serious implications. Sir, I've been advised not to use it temporarily while certain issues are clarified. General Anderson frowned. Questions? What questions would those be? Major Reynolds, who had been watching the scene with visible discomfort, stepped forward. General, there have been some allegations regarding the specific circumstances of the award. As a precautionary measure, I have determined that the medal should not be worn until the investigation is complete. The general listened in silence, his face a mask of professionalism. Then, to everyone's surprise, he turned to his aide-de-camp. Captain, bring me my briefcase. The aide quickly obeyed, returning with a folder of documents. The general opened it, removed some sheets, and handed them to Major Reynolds. Major, these are the original, unedited testimonies of all unit members present on the day of the incident. including that of the civilian translator who witnessed the rescue of the children. Also included is the complete medical report documenting Private Mitchell's injury, with the bullet trajectory consistent with her exposure to enemy fire during the rescue. He turned to me again. "Private Mitchell, do you have your medal with you?" "Yes, sir," I replied. For some reason that even I didn't fully understand, I had kept the medal in my uniform pocket every day since I was ordered not to wear it. "Put it down." I hesitated, glancing briefly at Major Reynolds and Lieutenant Harrison. The general noticed my hesitation. "That's a direct order, Private." With slightly trembling fingers, I removed the medal from my pocket and pinned it to its proper place on my uniform. The familiar weight of the medal against my chest brought a sense of relief I hadn't realized how much I needed to feel. General Anderson then did something extraordinary. He formally stood before me and saluted, a gesture of profound respect, especially coming from an officer of such high rank to a common soldier. And most impressively, he maintained the salute in absolute silence for several seconds. The parade ground was completely quiet. No one moved, no one spoke. It was as if time had stopped to witness that unique moment. When he finally lowered his hand, General Anderson spoke in a low but audible tone. "Private Mitchell, in my 35 years of military service, I have learned to recognize true courage. When I see it, don't let anyone question what you have accomplished or the sacrifices you have made. That medal is not just a piece of metal. It is a symbol of the best that the United States Armed Forces have to offer." He then turned to the rest of the formation. "To all of you here today, remember that honor lies not only in receiving recognition, but in living up to the values that recognition represents." Private Mitchell risked her life not for a medal, but because it was the right thing to do. That is the standard by which we should all measure ourselves. In the days that followed that extraordinary event, many things changed. Lieutenant Harrison was transferred to another unit. The investigation into my commendation was officially, and I received an offer to participate in a special leadership training program with the potential for accelerated promotion. But what really stayed with me was that moment of silence on the parade ground, when a general saluted a simple soldier, not out of protocol or obligation, but as a gesture of profound respect and recognition. Years have passed since then. My military career continued with new missions, challenges, and responsibility. Eventually, I was promoted and assumed leadership position, always trying to apply the lessons I learned along the way. One of those lessons, perhaps the most important, is that a person's true worth lies not in the medals they wear, but in the lives they touch and the choices they make. When faced with adversity, occasionally I receive news from Fatima. She is now a young woman studying to become a teacher. In her last letter, she told me that she plans to teach the girls in her community not only school subjects, but also about courage and determination. "Just as I learned from you," she wrote. When I look back at that young woman from Nebraska who dreamed of broader horizons, I realize how different the path was from what I imagined. There were moments of pain, doubt, and fear. But there were also moments of extraordinary clarity when I understood exactly why I was there and what it meant to serve something greater than myself. And perhaps, most surprisingly, I learned that sometimes the greatest battles are not fought under enemy fire in distant lands, but in the silent corridors of power, where integrity and truth can be as crucial as physical courage. That medal still occupies its place on my uniform, but its true meaning goes far beyond the medal and the ribbon. It reminds me not only of that day in Afghanistan, but also of the day a general stood silently, saluting, reaffirming with that simple gesture what truly matters, doing what is right, regardless of the personal cost. And if there's one lesson I'd like to pass on, it's this. Your worth isn't defined by what others think of you, but by the person you choose to be when nobody's watching, or when everyone is.